Samantha had worked as a waitress at the bustling downtown cafe for over a year. It wasn't glamorous work, but she enjoyed the rhythm of the place, taking orders, serving food, and exchanging quick smiles with the regulars. The cafe was her escape from the struggles outside. It allowed her to blend into the background of other people's stories while earning a paycheck. Most days were a blur of coffee refills, plates clattering, and hurried footsteps. But today was different. The cafe was unusually busy for a Monday morning. The line stretched to the door, and every table was packed with customers engrossed in laptops or casual conversations. Samantha had just finished serving a family of 4 when she noticed a man sitting alone at a small table by the window. He looked to be in his early 40s, dressed in a neat suit with his phone on the table in front of him, seemingly waiting for a call. His body language seemed tense, as if something weighed heavily on his mind. His eyes flickered to the door every few seconds, and he tapped his fingers impatiently on the table. Samantha grabbed a fresh cup of coffee from the counter and made her way over to his table. As she approached, she called out cheerily, "Here's your coffee, sir." But just as she reached the table, a nearby customer stood up abruptly, knocking into her. The collision sent the steaming hot cup of coffee flying from Samantha's tray, spilling its contents all over the man's crisp white shirt and the table in front of him. The cup clattered to the floor, its handle breaking off as it hit the tiles. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," Samantha gasped, her heart pounding in her chest. She grabbed a few napkins from a nearby table, frantically dabbing at the man's shirt. He stood up quickly, clearly taken by surprise, and tried to brush the coffee off himself, though it had already stained the front of his shirt and tie. His initial expression was one of shock, followed closely by frustration. "I can't believe this," he muttered, shaking his head. "I have an important meeting in half an hour." His voice was strained, as if he was trying to hold back his irritation. Samantha could feel the heat rising in her cheeks as embarrassment flooded over her. She couldn't believe how clumsy she had been, and now this man was paying the price. "I'm so sorry, sir," she said again, still trying to blot the coffee from his clothes. "Let me get something to help clean this up. I'll get you a new coffee right away, and we'll cover your dry cleaning, I promise." He waved a hand dismissively, though it was clear he was annoyed. "Just forget it," he sighed, sitting back down heavily in his chair. Samantha hurried to grab more napkins and a fresh cup of coffee, all the while mentally kicking herself for the mistake. She couldn't stop thinking about how angry he looked and how he kept checking his phone, probably worried about his upcoming meeting. When she returned, she set the coffee down more carefully this time and handed him a stack of napkins. "Really? I can't apologize enough. I'll make sure to cover the cost of cleaning your shirt." The man sighed deeply, running a hand through his hair as he wiped at the coffee stain again. "It's fine," he muttered, though it was clear he was still upset. "It's just, today's not the day for this." He paused for a moment, looking out the window as if debating whether to say more. Samantha, feeling a bit more relaxed now that the initial panic had passed, gently asked, "Is everything okay? You look like you've got a lot on your mind." For a moment, he didn't respond, still staring out at the street. But then, to her surprise, he let out a weary chuckle. "I guess it's written all over my face, huh?" Samantha smiled faintly. "I've seen a lot of faces. Yours definitely seems like something's weighing on you." He sighed again, shaking his head. "Yeah, I've got a big presentation today, one that could determine whether or not my company lands a major contract. No pressure, right? And now I'm about to walk into that meeting looking like this." He gestured to his coffee-stained shirt, the frustration creeping back into his voice. Samantha felt terrible. "I'm really sorry about the shirt. I know it doesn't help right now, but maybe it's not as bad as it looks. Sometimes these things don't show up as much as we think they do." He chuckled bitterly. "I wish that were true, but it's not just the shirt, it's everything. My company's been struggling for months, and this deal is the last chance we have to turn things around. If it doesn't go well..." His voice trailed off, and Samantha could see the exhaustion in his eyes. He looked like a man who had been carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders for too long. Without thinking, she sat down at the table across from him. "You know," she said softly, "I've seen a lot of people come through this cafe. Some of them are in here every day, stressed out, trying to make things happen. And I've noticed something. Most of the time, it's not about having everything go perfectly. It's about showing up and giving it your best, even when things don't go the way you planned. The man raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by her words. That's easier said than done when you've got investors breathing down your neck. I know, she replied, nodding. But I've also seen people walk in here after having the worst day ever, and by the time they leave, something as simple as a cup of coffee or a friendly conversation makes them feel a little better. I'm not saying this to downplay what you're going through. I can't imagine the pressure you're under. But maybe, just maybe, today's mess-up doesn't have to ruin everything. He looked at her for a long moment, his expression softening. You've got an interesting perspective for a waitress. Samantha smiled, though there was a hint of self-deprecation in it. Maybe. I've just had my share of bad days, and sometimes it helps to remember that one moment doesn't define the whole day. Maybe you'll walk into that meeting, coffee stain and all, and still nail it because you know your stuff. He chuckled, a genuine laugh this time. You really think a coffee stain isn't going to blow my chances? Well, she said with a grin, maybe you can spin it. Show them that you're a guy who doesn't let small things shake you. A little coffee isn't going to stop you from closing a deal. He leaned back in his chair, considering her words. The tension in his shoulders seemed to ease slightly. I guess it's better than walking in and pretending like everything's perfect. That would be a lie anyway. There you go, she said encouragingly. And besides, if they're going to judge you on a coffee spill instead of your work, maybe they're not the right fit for your company. The man shook his head, still smiling. You're a lot wiser than most people I talk to at meetings. Samantha laughed. I just pour coffee and clean tables, but sometimes you learn a thing or two from watching people. He looked at his watch, then back at her, and his smile faded slightly, replaced by a more thoughtful expression. You know, you're right. I've been so focused on everything going perfectly that I forgot what really matters. Getting the job done. I can't control everything, but I can control how I handle it. Samantha nodded, standing up from the table. Exactly, you've got this. Just take a deep breath and remember, it's just one moment in a bigger picture. The man stood as well, pulling out his wallet to pay for the coffee, but Samantha waved him off. This one's on the house, after all the trouble I caused. He smiled warmly at her. Thanks, I appreciate it. Not just for the coffee, but for the pep talk. It's been a while since I had someone remind me that everything doesn't have to be perfect. Anytime, she said, giving him a friendly smile. Good luck with your meeting. As he walked toward the door, he paused and turned back to her. By the way, my name's Andrew. Samantha, she replied, smiling. Thanks again, Samantha, Andrew said, giving her a nod before stepping out into the busy street. As the door closed behind him, Samantha felt a strange sense of satisfaction. She had made a mistake, spilled coffee on a customer and ruined his shirt, but somehow, in the midst of the mess, something good had come out of it. Sometimes, the moments we least expect are the ones that matter most. As she returned to cleaning tables, Samantha couldn't help but wonder how Andrew's meeting would go. But regardless of the outcome, she felt certain that, for at least one moment in his hectic day, she had made a difference. And that was enough.